Most people don't fail because they're stupid. They fail because they're disorganized, their days are chaotic, their priorities are blurred, and their discipline collapses the moment discomfort shows up. Millionaires are not special. They are structured. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on systems. They don't wait to feel ready. They execute on schedule. This book is not about dreaming bigger. It's about organizing your life so success becomes inevitable. If you can control your time, your environment, and your habits, you can control your income, your confidence, and your future. Let's begin. Chaos doesn't announce itself. It doesn't kick down the door and tell you it's destroying your future. It whispers, it distracts, it keeps you busy. And that's why most people never see it coming. You look at your life and think you're working hard. You're exhausted. Your days are full. Your phone never stops buzzing, but your results stay the same. That's not bad luck. That's not the economy. That's not a lack of talent. That is chaos draining you slowly. Disorder quietly steals your energy. Disorder fractures your focus. Disorder forces you to make hundreds of unnecessary decisions every single day. And by the time it's time to do the work that actually matters, you're depleted. That's the trap. You have a choice. You can live in reaction, or you can live in structure. Millionaires understand something most people refuse to accept. Wealth requires order. Not motivation. Not inspiration. Order. Look at broke lives and you'll see the same pattern. Messy schedules, messy finances, messy environments, messy thinking. Nothing is clear. Nothing is intentional. Everything is improvised, and improvisation feels exciting until the bill comes due. Because what you don't organize will eventually control you. Say that again. What you don't organize will eventually control you. Your time, your space, your habits, your priorities. If you don't control them, they will control you. That's the key. Millionaires don't wake up and see how they feel. They don't let the day decide for them. They don't allow randomness to dictate outcomes. They reduce friction. They simplify, because every unnecessary decision is a tax on your willpower. Think about it. What to wear, what to eat, what to do first, what to respond to, what to ignore. Most people burn mental energy before noon on things that don't move their life forward by even 1 inch. And then they say, "I'm tired." Of course you are. Chaos is expensive. That's why successful people simplify aggressively. Fewer clothes, fewer commitments, fewer distractions, clear systems. It's not about doing more. It's about removing what doesn't matter. You don't need their permission to simplify your life. You don't need anyone to agree with you. You have a choice. Here's the hard truth. Being busy is not impressive. Being organized is powerful. Chaos keeps you reacting. Structure puts you in command, and command creates confidence. Let's talk about focus. Focus doesn't disappear randomly. It's stolen by clutter, by noise, by unmade decisions. If your desk is messy, your thinking will be messy. If your schedule is loose, your discipline will be weak. If your priorities aren't written down, distractions will write them for you. That's not a theory. That's reality. Millionaires don't trust memory. They don't trust mood. They don't trust motivation. They trust systems. Because systems remove chaos, and chaos is the enemy of wealth. Now here's where most people lie to themselves. They say, "I'll organize once things calm down." That day never comes. Order is not the result of success. Order is the acquirement for success. You don't get organized after you win. You get organized so you can win. That's the shift. You have a choice. You can keep living in noise, or you can design structure. Start small, but start deliberately. Clean one space. Set one fixed routine. Decide one non-negotiable. Not tomorrow, today. Because every organized action strengthens your authority over your own life, and authority compounds. Disorder creates hesitation. Structure creates momentum. Momentum is what builds wealth, not hype, not luck. Momentum. And momentum comes from clarity. Let me be clear with you. If your life feels overwhelming, it's not because you're weak. It's because your systems are weak. It's not about intelligence. It's not about talent. It's about discipline, specifically, disciplined organization. That's the key. Every organized person has an edge over a chaotic genius. Every time. Because chaos forces emotional decisions, and emotional decisions are expensive. Structure creates neutral execution. You do the work whether you feel like it or not. You follow the plan whether you're motivated or not. That's power, and power is calm. This is why wealthy people often seem unbothered. Their lives are structured. They're not wasting energy deciding what to do next. They already decided. You have a choice. You can let chaos run your days, or you can design order that runs your future. And remember this line because you'll hear it again. What you don't organize will eventually control you. If you don't control your schedule, someone else will. If you don't control your environment, distractions will. If you don't control your habits, impulses will. And none of those build wealth. Chaos keeps you broke. Not always financially, but mentally, emotionally, energetically. And broke thinking always comes before broke results. This chapter is not about perfection, it's about intention. You don't need a perfect system. You need a decided one. Because once chaos is removed, discipline has room to operate. And that's where everything changes. You eliminated the enemy. Now it's time to build the weapon. You've seen why chaos destroys wealth. Now let's talk about what actually replaces it. Because talent won't save you, and motivation won't sustain you. Talent is overrated. That statement offends people, especially people who believe they are talented. Because talent feels good. Talent gives you identity. Talent gives you excuses. But talent doesn't pay consistently. Talent doesn't show up every day. Talent doesn't survive pressure. Discipline does. You have a choice. You can admire your potential, or you can build results. Most people fall in love with what they could be. They talk about their intelligence, their creativity, their ability. But potential is cheap. Everyone has it. Execution is rare, and execution requires discipline. That's the key. Here's the truth no one likes to hear. Talent creates opportunity. Discipline creates income. Talent gets you noticed once. Discipline keeps you paid. That's not theory. That's how the real world works. Look around. The highest earners in almost every field are not the most gifted. They're the most consistent. They show up on time. They follow routines. They repeat boring actions long after the excitement is gone. Discipline is doing it, even when it's boring. Say it again. Discipline is doing it even when it's boring. And boring is where most people quit. They stop when progress slows. They stop when praise disappears. They stop when the work becomes repetitive. That's why average performers with discipline pass talented quitters every single time. Because discipline doesn't negotiate. Talent negotiates. Talent asks, "Do I feel like it today?" Discipline says, "It's scheduled." You don't need their permission to be disciplined. You don't need applause. You don't need validation. You don't need motivation. You need standards. Millionaires live by standards, not moods. They don't wake up and ask how they feel. They ask what needs to be executed. That's the shift. You have a choice. You can build your life around emotions, or you can build it around structure. Emotion-based living feels free, but it's unstable. Discipline-based living feels restrictive, but it compounds. And compounding always wins. Here's a real-world pattern. The gifted student who never studies eventually gets passed. The talented athlete who skips practice gets injured. The creative entrepreneur who avoids structure goes broke. Meanwhile, the average person who shows up every day quietly overtakes them. Why? Because discipline removes randomness. Random effort creates random results. Disciplined effort creates predictable success. That's the key. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they lack consistency. They sprint, they stop, they restart. Wealth doesn't respond to bursts. It responds to repetition. Discipline is doing it even when it's boring. That means working when no one is watching. That means following the plan when results are invisible. That means repeating the same action long after it stops being exciting. This is where ego gets exposed. Talented people often quit faster because their ego expects rewards early. Discipline doesn't expect rewards. Discipline expects effort, and effort, repeated daily, becomes leverage. You have a choice. You can wait to feel inspired, or you can train yourself to execute on command. One creates excuses. The other creates outcomes. Let's get practical. Discipline is not about intensity. It's about reliability. Not how hard you work once, but how consistently you work forever. That means fixed wake-up times, non-negotiable work blocks, simple routines you can repeat even on bad days. If your plan requires motivation, it's a bad plan. Millionaires design systems that work even when they don't feel like working, because feelings are unreliable. Discipline is dependable. That's the key. And here's another truth most people miss. Discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. You build it the same way you build muscle, through repetition, through discomfort, through doing what you said you would do, especially when you don't want to. Every time you keep a small promise to yourself, discipline strengthens. Every time you break one, discipline weakens. And weakened discipline makes talent irrelevant. You don't need to be exceptional. You need to be consistent. That's it. This is why millionaires obsess over habits. Habits remove decision-making. Habits reduce effort. Habits automate success. And habits are built through discipline, not talent. You have a choice. You can keep identifying as gifted, or you can start identifying as reliable. Reliable people win. Reliable people get trusted, promoted, paid, because reliability compounds faster than brilliance. Talent shines once. Discipline shines forever. Let me be blunt. If you keep quitting when it gets boring, you are choosing mediocrity, not because you're incapable, but because you're undisciplined. And discipline is a decision made daily, sometimes hourly, sometimes minute by minute. You don't need their permission to outwork them. You don't need to be the smartest in the room. You need to be the most consistent. Say it one last time. Discipline is doing it even when it's boring. That's the formula. Chaos was the enemy. Discipline is the weapon. And now that you understand discipline beats talent, there's another layer you must master. Because even discipline fails without direction. You can work hard on the wrong things and still lose. So next we talk about control, not over others, over your time. Because time is where discipline either thrives or dies. Your day is not neutral. It is either designed or it is stolen. There is no middle ground. Most people wake up and let the day happen to them. They check their phone. They react to messages. They respond to noise. And before they realize it, the day is gone. Busy, exhausted, unfulfilled. That's not bad time management. That's no time management. You have a choice. You can control the day, or the day will control you. Millionaires understand this early. Time is not found. Time is assigned. They don't wait for free time. They schedule what matters first. That's the key. Here's the rule that separates winners from drifters. If you don't schedule your priorities, distractions will. Say it again. If you don't schedule your priorities, distractions will. Your phone is not the problem. Your inbox is not the problem. Other people are not the problem. The problem is a day with no structure. Because unstructured time invites chaos, and chaos destroys discipline. Millionaires don't let the day happen. They give every hour a job. Not every hour is productive, but every hour is intentional. That's the difference. Most people confuse freedom with flexibility. Flexibility feels good in the moment, but it produces anxiety long term. Structure feels strict at first, but it creates calm, control, and confidence. You don't need their permission to structure your day. You don't need to explain it. You don't need approval. You need results. And results come from ownership of time. Let's talk about mornings. Your morning decides your entire day, not because mornings are magical, but because mornings set dominance. If you win the morning, you control the narrative. If you lose the morning, you spend the rest of the day reacting. Most people start their day behind. They wake up late. They rush. They scroll. They absorb noise before intention. That's weakness. Not moral weakness, structural weakness. Millionaires don't start the day confused. They start the day decided. Same wake-up time, same first actions, same priorities. Why? Because decision-making costs energy, and the morning is when energy is highest. You don't waste that energy on randomness. That's the key. Morning structure creates psychological dominance. You're no longer chasing the day. The day is responding to you. That changes how you think, how you move, how you execute. You have a choice. You can wake up reactive, or you can wake up in command. Command creates confidence. Confidence fuels discipline. Discipline compounds into wealth. This is not about waking up at 4 a.m. That's noise. It's not about copying someone else's routine. It's about consistency. Your body learns patterns. Your mind learns patterns. When you repeat the same structure, execution becomes automatic. And automation is power. Millionaires don't rely on willpower all day. They spend it once by designing the day in advance. Then they follow the plan, even when they don't feel like it, especially when they don't feel like it. Because feelings don't run schedules, structure does. That's the key. Here's a hard truth. If your calendar is empty, your life will be chaotic. If your calendar is full of nonsense, your future will be empty. Your schedule reveals your values, not your words, not your intentions, your schedule. So look at it. Does it reflect growth or distraction? Does it protect focus or invite interruption? You have a choice. Start scheduling outcomes, not tasks. Block time for deep work. Block time for learning. Block time for rest. Yes, rest. Because disciplined rest prevents burnout. Unplanned rest turns into avoidance. That's the difference. Most people take breaks that never end. They disappear into scrolling. They numb themselves with content. That's not rest. That's escape. Structure even your breaks. That's discipline. And discipline creates freedom. Say it again. If you don't schedule your priorities, distractions will. Every notification is competing for your life. Every interruption is stealing minutes you'll never get back. Millionaires are ruthless with time, not angry, not stressed. Ruthless. They say no early so they don't pay later. They don't apologize for protecting focus. You don't need their permission to protect your time. You need to respect it. Time is the container for discipline. No container, no results. You can be disciplined for 10 minutes, but without structure, discipline collapses under pressure. That's why structure comes before motivation, before ambition, before goals. Structure is the skeleton. Everything else hangs on it. Let me be clear. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And your daily schedule is your primary system. Weak schedule, weak execution, strong schedule, strong results. You have a choice. Design the day once, or redesign your life every year out of frustration. Most people choose chaos because it feels flexible. But flexibility is expensive. Structure is efficient. Efficiency builds momentum. Momentum builds wealth. This chapter is not about perfection. It's about ownership. Decide when you wake up. Decide what matters first. Decide when work ends. When you decide in advance, life stops negotiating with you, and that's power. You've learned how discipline beats talent. Now you understand how structure protects discipline. But there's another problem that destroys even well-structured days. Doing too much. chasing too many things, trying to win everywhere and winning nowhere. So next we cut deeper, because wealth is not built by doing everything. It's built by doing the right things. More is not better. More is heavier. More is noisier. More is slower. And most people are drowning in more. More tasks, more commitments, more ideas, more distractions. They think success comes from adding effort, adding hours, adding responsibilities. That belief keeps them broke, because wealth does not grow from addition. Wealth grows from elimination. That's the key. Here's the truth most people avoid. Not everything deserves your time. Some things deserve your attention. Some deserve your energy. Most deserve neither. Yet most people treat everything as urgent. They try to win everywhere. They try to keep everyone happy. They try to do it all. And they lose. Quietly, slowly, predictably. You have a choice. You can be busy, or you can be effective. They are not the same thing. Say it clearly. Busy is not productive. Say it again. Busy is not productive. Busy people feel important. Productive people get paid. Busy people brag about exhaustion. Productive people protect focus. Millionaires understand this difference early. They don't major in minor tasks. They don't confuse movement with progress. They ask one ruthless question: what actually moves the needle? Then they eliminate everything else. That's the discipline. You don't need their permission to cut things out of your life. You don't need to explain why you're unavailable. You don't need to justify your focus. Prioritization will offend people. That's the price. But distraction costs more. That's the key. Here's the trap most people fall into. They say yes because they don't want conflict. They say yes because they're afraid of missing out. They say yes because they confuse opportunity with obligation. But every yes steals time from something else. And time is not unlimited. Every yes is a trade, and most people are trading their future for comfort. You have a choice. You can protect what matters, or you can keep reacting to what's loud. Millionaires focus on leverage, actions that create long-term value, actions that multiply results, actions that continue paying after the effort stops. They don't chase short-term busyness. They chase impact. That's why their to-do lists are shorter, but sharper. Most people's lists are endless. Full of low-value tasks, emails, meetings, errands, noise. They end the day tired, but unchanged. That's not productivity. That's activity without direction. Busy is not productive. If your day feels full, but your life feels stuck, your priorities are wrong, not your effort. Your priorities. It's not about working harder. It's about working on fewer things. That's the discipline. Ruthless prioritization means this: you identify the top 1-3 actions that actually move your life forward, and you do them first, every day, before distractions, before favors, before noise. Everything else becomes optional. That sounds harsh. It is. And it works. You have a choice. You can spread yourself thin, or you can concentrate power. Power comes from focus. Focus comes from elimination. Elimination requires courage, because saying no feels uncomfortable, but saying yes to everything feels expensive. Millionaires choose discomfort now to avoid regret later. They don't ask, "Can I do this?" They ask, "Should I?" That's the difference. Here's a simple rule you must adopt. If an action doesn't build skill, income, leverage, or long-term value, it's a distraction. Not evil, not wrong, just irrelevant. And irrelevant things don't deserve prime hours. That's the key. Most people reverse this. They give prime energy to low-value tasks and leftovers to high-impact work. Then they wonder why progress is slow. Ruthless prioritization flips that order. High impact first, everything else later or never. You don't need their permission to prioritize yourself. You don't need to explain your boundaries. Boundaries are not aggression. They are discipline. And discipline creates clarity. Let me be clear. This chapter is not telling you to do less forever. It's telling you to do less on purpose. When you focus on fewer things, execution improves. When execution improves, results accelerate. When results accelerate, options expand. And options are freedom. Most people chase freedom by adding. Millionaires earn freedom by subtracting. That's the key. If your life feels scattered, it's because your priorities are scattered. If your mind feels noisy, it's because you're trying to hold too much. You were not designed to do everything. You were designed to choose. And choosing requires discipline. Say it again. Busy is not productive. Productivity is not about speed. It's about direction. You can run fast in the wrong direction and still lose. Ruthless prioritization slows you down just enough to aim correctly. Then it accelerates you beyond everyone else. This is how ordinary people create extraordinary outcomes. Not through talent, not through luck, through focus. Focus is a weapon, and like all weapons, it must be aimed. You've learned how chaos destroys wealth. You've learned how discipline beats talent. You've learned how structure protects your time. Now you've learned how prioritization sharpens your effort. But there's another invisible force shaping your behavior every single day, one you're probably ignoring: your surroundings. Because even the right priorities fail in the wrong environment, and discipline becomes 10 times harder when your environment fights you. So next we go deeper, not into motivation, into design. Because your environment is either helping you win or quietly training you to lose. You think you're in control. You think your choices are conscious. You think your discipline comes from willpower. It doesn't. Your environment is making decisions before you even notice. That's the uncomfortable truth. Look around you, your desk, your phone, your room, your notifications, your digital clutter. None of it is neutral. It is all programming you. And most people are being programmed for distraction, laziness, and low standards. You have a choice. You can fight your environment every day, or you can design it to work for you. Millionaires don't rely on willpower. They rely on design. Because willpower is fragile. Environment is constant. That's the key. Your environment decides your behavior. Your environment decides your behavior. Cluttered space creates cluttered thinking. Noise creates anxiety. Convenience creates habits, good or bad. If laziness is easy, laziness wins. If discipline is easy, discipline wins. That's not psychology theory. That's reality. Most people try to change themselves without changing their surroundings. That's backwards. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You sink to the level of your environment. Millionaires understand this. They remove friction from good habits. They add friction to bad ones. They don't debate discipline. They engineer it. You don't need permission to redesign your environment. You don't need to explain why you're changing things. Your results will explain everything. Look at a messy desk, papers everywhere, random objects, unfinished tasks staring back at you. That desk isn't just messy. It's draining you. Every glance steals attention. Every pile whispers unfinished business. That's cognitive debt. And debt compounds. Clean environments create clarity. Clarity creates calm. Calm creates focus. Focus creates execution. Execution creates wealth. That's the chain. Break it anywhere and results collapse. Your environment decides your behavior. Whatever is easiest, you will do more often. Scrolling, snacking, avoiding work, or executing discipline. If your phone is always within reach, distraction wins. If junk food is visible, discipline loses. If your workspace is chaotic, focus disappears. Millionaires design environments where the right behavior is the default. They don't rely on strength. They rely on structure. Most people say, I just need more self-control. No, you need fewer temptations. It's not about weakness. It's about exposure. If distractions surround you all day, resistance becomes impossible. Eventually you break. That's not failure. That's physics. So stop fighting. Start designing. Disciplined people live differently. They clean first. They organize first. They simplify first. Not because they love cleaning, because they respect focus. Minimalism isn't about aesthetics. It's about mental bandwidth. Every object you own either supports your future or distracts from it. Millionaires are ruthless with space, physical space, digital space, mental space. They don't keep what they don't use. They don't tolerate clutter for later. They don't let disorder linger. Because disorder spreads and discipline collapses in messy systems, your environment decides your behavior. A clean room helps. But systems change everything: where things go, how tasks start, how work flows. Systems reduce thinking. Reduced thinking saves energy. Energy is limited. Millionaires automate discipline. Same workspace, same tools, same setup. When it's time to work, there's no resistance. Work begins automatically. Laziness becomes inconvenient. That's intentional. You're not being extreme. You're being effective. Most people make bad habits easy and good habits hard. Then they complain about motivation. Flip that. Make discipline convenient. Make distraction annoying. That's the key. Clear your workspace. Keep only what supports your priority. Remove what steals hours. Design one place for deep work. When you sit there, you work. No debate. This isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. If your environment fights your goals, you're fighting yourself every day. And that's exhausting. You have a choice. Blame discipline. Or redesign your surroundings. Millionaires don't ask, "How do I feel today?" They ask, "What does this environment produce?" That's leadership. Over self. Over space. Over outcomes. Your environment decides your behavior. Remember that. Discipline isn't only internal. It's built into walls, desks, schedules, and systems. And when environment supports discipline, consistency becomes effortless. Effortless consistency creates momentum. Momentum compounds. That's how wealth is built quietly. Now comes the multiplier. Because when discipline becomes automatic, small actions stop feeling small. They stack. They compound. And compounding is what separates rich from struggling. Next, we go deeper, into the force that turns ordinary habits into unstoppable results. Most people misunderstand how success actually works. They think it's explosive. They think it's dramatic. They think it happens all at once. It doesn't. Success is quiet, so quiet that impatient people miss it entirely. Wealth is not built through intensity. It's built through repetition. That's the key. Small actions, done daily, without applause. This is where most people lose. They want fast results. They want visible progress. They want proof before commitment. But compounding doesn't announce itself early. It whispers. And if you're not disciplined, you quit before it speaks loudly. You have a choice. You can chase intensity, or you can commit to consistency. Intensity feels powerful for a moment. Consistency feels boring for a long time. But boring wins. Consistency is quiet, but it's unstoppable. Consistency is quiet, but it's unstoppable. Millionaires understand this deeply. They don't rely on heroic effort. They rely on reliable effort. They show up when it's boring. They show up when it's slow. They show up when nothing seems to be happening. Because something is happening. Just not on the surface. That's the trap. Most people judge progress emotionally. If I don't feel momentum, it's not working. That thinking kills compounding. Compounding requires faith in process and discipline to continue without reward. That's rare. That's why it works. You don't need permission to move slowly. You don't need validation to keep showing up. You need standards. Consistency isn't flashy. It's repetitive, predictable, unexciting. And that's why it separates the wealthy from the frustrated. Most people quit out of boredom, not failure. They stop when results lag behind effort. They say, "This isn't working." But they didn't stay long enough. You have a choice. You can restart constantly, or you can stay long enough for compounding to take effect. Restarting feels productive. Staying feels uncomfortable. But restarting resets progress. Staying multiplies it. That's the key. Small actions don't feel powerful in the moment, but repeated actions reshape identity, and identity drives behavior. When you show up daily, you stop negotiating with yourself. Execution becomes normal. Discipline becomes automatic. That's when momentum appears. Not early. Later. Overnight success stories are lies. What you see is the explosion. What you don't see is the years of quiet consistency. Millionaires don't chase motivation, they chase streaks. They don't ask, how hard did I work today? They ask, did I show up? Showing up daily beats working hard occasionally. Every time. Because intensity burns out. Consistency compounds. Consistency is quiet, but it's unstoppable. Impatience is the enemy of compounding. It makes you switch too early. It makes you abandon habits too fast. It makes you chase novelty instead of mastery. Most people don't fail. They quit. They change plans before results can stack. They underestimate how long it takes and overestimate how fast it should happen. Millionaires think in years, not weeks. They don't panic when progress is invisible. They trust the math, because compounding always starts slow. Always. That's not a flaw. That's the design. You can respect the process, or sabotage it with impatience. Respecting the process looks simple. Same habits, same schedule, same execution. Even when nothing exciting happens. Even when no one notices. Even when doubt shows up. Doubt is normal. Quitting is optional. That's discipline. It's not about talent. It's not about luck. It's not about intensity. It's about discipline. Discipline is boring. And boring is sustainable. Sustainability creates momentum. Momentum creates leverage. Leverage creates wealth. Goals inspire. Habits deliver. Millionaires focus on habits. Because habits compound quietly. One extra hour of focused work per day doesn't feel life-changing. Until a year passes. One disciplined financial decision doesn't feel powerful. Until 5 years pass, then suddenly results look lucky. They're not. They're earned. Flash fades, consistency endures. Consistency enscores, but it's unstoppable. Pick fewer habits. Commit longer. Decide what matters. Then show up daily. No drama, no negotiation, just execution. This is where identity shifts. You stop being someone who tries. You become someone who finishes. Finishers win, because compounding rewards completion, not intention. Momentum doesn't care how you feel. It cares how often you show up. And once momentum exists, discipline becomes easier, because movement creates belief. Belief fuels consistency. Consistency compounds. That's the loop. You're building something invisible before it becomes undeniable. That's how real wealth is created, quietly, patiently, relentlessly. Now you understand how consistency multiplies everything. But there's one weakness that destroys consistency faster than anything else: emotion. When emotions take control, discipline collapses. Next, we remove emotion from execution, not to become cold, but to become unstoppable. Most people are ruled by how they feel. They work when they feel motivated. They stop when they feel tired. They quit when they feel doubt. And then they wonder why results are inconsistent. Here's the truth: feelings are unstable. They change hourly, daily, without warning. If your execution depends on emotion, your results will always be fragile. Millionaires understand this early. They do not negotiate with emotions, they execute through systems. That's the key. Say it clearly. Feelings don't run systems. Say it again. Feelings don't run systems. This is not about becoming robotic. It's about becoming reliable. Emotion-led people are unpredictable. System-led people are unstoppable. Fear shows up. They execute anyway. Boredom shows up. They execute anyway. Doubt shows up. They execute anyway. Because the system doesn't care how they feel. And neither does success. You have a choice. You can let emotions decide your output, or you can let systems decide it. One creates chaos. The other creates consistency. Most people misunderstand emotions. They think emotions are instructions. They're not. They're signals. Fear does not mean stop. Boredom does not mean quit. Doubt does not mean change direction. It means you're human. Execution does not require emotional alignment. It requires commitment. That's the discipline. Millionaires don't wait to feel confident. They act first. Confidence follows execution, not the other way around. That's the key. Think about how many days you've lost waiting to feel ready. Ready never arrives. Ready is a myth invented by fear. Systems eliminate that delay. When it's time to work, you work. No debate, no internal conversation, no emotional drama. That's power. You don't need their permission to act without feeling ready. You don't need validation to follow your plan. You need standards. Standards override emotions. Emotions beg. Standards command. This is why systems matter so much. Systems remove decision-making. They tell you what to do next regardless of mood. And when decisions are removed, execution speeds up. Most people burn energy deciding whether to start, whether to continue, whether to stop. That hesitation is expensive. Millionaires eliminate it. Same schedule, same process, same expectations. They don't ask, do I feel like it? They ask, is it on the schedule? That's the shift. Feelings don't run systems. Let's talk about fear. Fear is not the enemy. Indecision is. Fear becomes powerful when you listen to it. It becomes weak when you move anyway. Action shrinks fear. Inaction feeds it. Emotionless execution starves fear of attention. You don't fight fear. You ignore it and proceed. That's discipline. Boredom works the same way. Boredom doesn't mean the work is wrong. It means the novelty is gone. And novelty was never the engine of success. Repetition is. Millionaires expect boredom. They plan for it. They know boredom is the price of mastery. So, when boredom arrives, they don't panic. They execute. Doubt also loses power under systems. Doubt thrives in uncertainty. Systems create certainty. You know what to do today. You know when to do it. You know when it's done. No emotional interpretation required. That's the key. You have a choice. You can keep asking yourself how you feel, or you can ask what needs to be done. One leads to delay, the other leads to results. Emotionless execution does not mean suppressing emotions. It means not obeying them. You acknowledge them, then you move. This is what separates professionals from amateurs. Amateurs perform when they feel good. Professionals perform because it's required. Millionaires think like professionals about their lives. They don't romanticize work. They respect it. Respect shows up as consistency. Consistency requires systems. Systems ignore feelings. Feelings don't run systems. Here's a practical instruction. Write down your non-negotiables, not goals, actions. When you work, what you work on, how long you work, then follow that list regardless of mood. When emotion shows up, do not negotiate, execute the minimum standard. Minimum standards protect momentum. Momentum protects belief. Belief fuels consistency. This is how discipline becomes automatic. Over time, something changes. Execution stops feeling heavy. Not because work got easier, because resistance disappeared. Resistance lives in decision-making. Systems remove it. And once resistance is gone, discipline feels lighter. That's when people say, "You're so motivated." You're not. You're systemized. You don't need their permission to stop being emotional about progress. You don't need to feel inspired to act. Action creates inspiration. not the other way around. Remember this: emotions are weather, systems are climate. Weather changes daily. Climate determines outcomes. You build wealth in climate, not weather. By now you understand this pattern. Chaos destroyed progress. Discipline replaced chaos. Structure protected time. Prioritization sharpened focus. Environment programmed behavior. Consistency created momentum. Emotionless execution sustained it. But there's one final misconception we need to destroy. People think discipline is punishment. They think structure removes freedom. They think systems trap them. That belief keeps them resisting the very thing that would liberate them. So next, we flip the narrative. Because discipline is not a cage, it's a key. Most people misunderstand discipline. They see it as restriction, as limitation, as punishment. They think discipline takes something away. That belief is why they resist it, and that resistance keeps them trapped. Here's the truth: discipline does not remove freedom. Discipline creates freedom. That's the key. Discipline today buys freedom tomorrow. Discipline today buys freedom tomorrow. Chaos feels free in the moment. No schedule, no rules, no structure. But chaos charges interest, anxiety, indecision, stress. That's the bill. Structure feels restrictive at first, but structure removes friction, and friction is what exhausts you. Millionaires understand this trade-off. They accept short-term discipline to avoid long-term chaos. They don't confuse impulse with freedom. Impulse is slavery. You have a choice. You can obey impulses, or you can design discipline. One controls you. The other serves you. Discipline removes decision fatigue. You stop asking, "What should I do today? When should I work? Should I push or rest?" Those questions drain energy. Structure answers them in advance. That's peace. Peace is not laziness. Peace is clarity, and clarity is power. Most anxiety doesn't come from difficulty. It comes from indecision, from constantly choosing, constantly adjusting, constantly reacting. Discipline eliminates that noise. When your schedule is decided, your mind relaxes. When your priorities are clear, guilt disappears. When your standards are set, confidence grows. That's why disciplined people look calm. Not because life is easy, because chaos has been removed. Discipline today buys freedom tomorrow. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is doing what matters without resistance. Freedom is having energy at the end of the day. Freedom is trusting yourself. And trust is built through consistency. Most people don't trust themselves. They make promises and break them. They set goals and abandon them. Over time, confidence erodes. Discipline rebuilds trust. Every kept promise strengthens belief. Belief fuels courage. Courage creates options. Options are freedom. That's the chain. You don't need permission to live disciplined. You don't need to explain your routines. You don't need to justify your standards. Results speak louder than comfort. Millionaires don't ask, "Is this fun?" They ask, "Is this freeing?" Fun is short-term. Freedom is long-term. Rules feel limiting to undisciplined minds, but rules liberate disciplined ones. A rule removes negotiation, no debate, no stress, no emotional drain. Rules create speed. Speed creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Structure gives room to breathe. Chaos suffocates. You have a choice. You can keep improvising your life, or you can lock in structure and relax inside it. Improvisation feels exciting until it becomes exhausting. Discipline feels boring until it becomes liberating. Discipline today buys freedom tomorrow. Lack of discipline is expensive, financially, emotionally, mentally. The bill always arrives late. When it's harder to pay, millionaires pay early. They invest in discipline when it's uncomfortable, so they don't pay and regret later. Every disciplined action reduces future stress. Every undisciplined action postpones it. Stress never disappears. It just moves. Discipline decides where it lands. If life feels heavy, look at structure, not motivation. If anxiety is constant, look at standards, not personality. This is not about being strict. It's about being intentional. Intentional people sleep better. They move cleaner. They think clearer. Clarity is freedom. Freedom is not random. It's designed. Discipline today buys freedom tomorrow. But even disciplined people fail when they mismanage one thing: time. Because time is not just a resource, it's the resource. And if it's not protected, nothing else matters. So next we talk about defense. Because wealth is not just built, it's protected. And time is where that battle is fought. Time is not money. Money can be replaced. Time cannot. Once a minute is gone, it's gone forever. Millionaires understand this at a deep level. That's why they guard their time more aggressively than their cash. Because time is the source of everything else. That's the key. You can recover from a bad investment. You cannot recover from a wasted decade. Most people spend time casually. They give it away without thinking. They donate it to distractions. They hand it to people who don't respect it. Then they wonder why life feels rushed. It's not because you don't have enough time. It's because you don't protect it. You have a choice. You can treat time like loose change, or you can treat it like $1 million asset. Millionaires choose the second option. They don't ask, "Can I fit this in?" They ask, "Is this worth the cost?" Because every commitment has a price. Say it clearly. Every yes costs you something. Say it again. Every yes costs you something. That cost might be focus. It might be energy. It might be progress. But there is always a cost. Saying yes to one thing means saying no to another. And most people never calculate the trade. They say yes emotionally, out of guilt, out of fear, out of habit. That's expensive behavior. Millionaires say no strategically, not angrily, not rudely. Strategically, they understand that distractions don't look dangerous. They look harmless. A message, a meeting, a favor, a quick scroll. But distractions are thieves in disguise. They don't rob you all at once. They steal minutes, and minutes compound into years. That's the key. Most people protect their money with budgets, but they let anyone access their time. That's backward. Time should have stricter rules than money, because money is a product of time used well. If your time is unprotected, your income will be unstable. You have a choice. You can keep reacting, or you can start defending. Defense is discipline. Protecting time is not selfish. It's responsible. If you don't protect your time, no one else will. And people will take what you make available. That's human nature. You don't need their permission to say no. You don't need to explain your priorities. No is a complete sentence. Millionaires understand this. They don't apologize for protecting focus. They respect it. They treat time like an investment portfolio. They ask, does this grow me? Does this build leverage? Does this move me forward? If the answer is no, they pass. Not everything deserves access to your life. That's the discipline. Let's talk about interruptions. Interruptions are silent killers of momentum. They break focus. They reset attention. They create friction. Most people think interruptions are small. They're not. Every interruption forces your brain to restart. That restart costs energy. Do that enough times, and you're exhausted without producing anything meaningful. Millionaires build barriers, time blocks, do not disturb rules, unavailable hours. They don't make themselves constantly accessible. Accessibility is not a virtue. Focus is. That's the key. Here's the truth. If you're always available, you're always distracted. And distracted people don't build wealth. They stay busy. They stay tired. They stay behind. Every yes costs you something. Say yes carefully. Say no confidently. That's how disciplined people move through the world. Time protection also means protecting yourself, from scrolling, from procrastination disguised as research, from just one more loops. You don't need to eliminate enjoyment. You need to contain it. Uncontrolled leisure becomes avoidance. Controlled rest restores energy. There's a difference. Millionaires schedule rest. They don't let it leak into work time. They know recovery is strategic. But so is execution. Everything has a place. That's structure. Structure protects time. Time protects freedom. You have a choice. You can let your day be chopped into pieces, or you can guard long blocks of focus. Deep work builds skills. Skills build leverage. Leverage builds income. No leverage comes from fragmented attention. That's the reality. Most people complain they don't have time. What they mean is they don't have uninterrupted time, and uninterrupted time requires boundaries. Boundaries require discipline. Discipline requires courage. Courage to disappoint. Because when you say no more often, people notice. Let them. You're not here to be liked. You're here to build something, and building requires solitude, focus, silence. Millionaires don't live loud lives. They live deliberate ones. Every yes costs you something. Calculate the cost before you pay it. Here's your instruction. Audit your time. Not once, daily. Ask yourself, what stole my time today? What earned it? What needs a boundary? Then adjust. This is not about perfection. It's about awareness. Awareness creates control. Control creates momentum. Momentum creates freedom. By now, you see the pattern. Chaos destroys wealth. Discipline creates structure. Structure protects focus. Priorities sharpen effort. Environment programs behavior. Consistency compounds results. Emotionless execution sustains momentum. Discipline creates freedom. Time protection preserves it. There's only one piece left. Systems. Because discipline without systems still relies on effort, and effort fades. The final step is building a life that runs even on bad days, where progress happens without motivation, where success becomes automatic. Motivation is unreliable. It shows up late, it leaves early, and it disappears exactly when you need it most. If your success depends on motivation, your success is fragile. Millionaires know this. They don't build lives that require motivation. They build systems. That's the key. Say it clearly, systems don't care how you feel. Say it again, systems don't care how you feel. Motivation is emotional. Systems are mechanical. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Systems say, this is what happens next. And wealth is built on what happens next consistently. You have a choice. You can keep chasing motivation, or you can eliminate the need for it. Chasing motivation keeps you dependent. Systems make you independent. That's power. Most people wait for the right mood, the right energy, the right timing. Millionaires remove that waiting. They design routines that execute automatically, even on bad days, especially on bad days, because bad days are guaranteed. Systems are built for reality, not fantasy. That's the key. Let's be honest. You will not always feel focused. You will not always feel confident. You will not always feel disciplined. That's normal. What's not normal is allowing feelings to stop progress. Systems prevent that. A checklist doesn't ask how you feel. A routine doesn't debate. A rule doesn't negotiate. Execution happens. Progress continues. This is why systems create reliability, and reliability creates trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in outcomes. Trust is calm. Calm creates clarity. Clarity creates momentum. You don't need their permission to stop relying on motivation. You don't need to feel inspired to be effective. Effectiveness is designed. Millionaires design their days like machines, not rigid machines, reliable ones. Wake-up rules, work blocks, decision filters, shutdown routines. Nothing fancy, just repeatable. Because repeatable wins. Most people overcomplicate success. They think it requires passion every day. It doesn't. It requires standards. Standards remove choice. When something is a standard, it happens. No emotion involved. That's discipline at its highest level. It's not about force, it's about design. Systems don't care how you feel. Let's talk about bad days. Bad days destroy motivated people. They wake up tired. They feel off. They skip everything. And one skipped day becomes two, then a week, then regret. Systems protect you from that spiral. On bad days, systems lower the bar but keep it intact. You still show up. You still execute the minimum. You keep the streak alive. Streaks matter because consistency matters, and consistency beats intensity every time. Millionaires don't aim for perfect days. They aim for never zero days. Something always gets done, even if it's small. Small actions keep systems alive. Alive systems compound. That's the key. Here's the mistake most people make. They rely on memory. Memory fails. They rely on willpower. Willpower fades. Millionaires rely on external systems, written plans, visible checklists, fixed routines. They don't keep discipline in their head. They build it into their environment. This is how discipline becomes effortless. You have a choice. You can keep trying harder, or you can design smarter. Trying harder burns out. Designing smarter scales. Wealth requires scale. You cannot scale motivation. You can scale systems. That's why this chapter matters. Systems turn discipline into autopilot. Autopilot frees mental energy. Mental energy can be used for strategy. Strategy creates leverage. Leverage creates wealth. This is the final layer. Everything else you've learned leads here. Chaos had to be eliminated. Discipline had to be installed. Structure had to protect time. Priorities had to be sharpened. Environment had to be redesigned. Consistency had to compound. Emotions had to be removed from execution. Discipline had to be reframed as freedom. Time had to be defended. Now systems lock it all in. Systems don't care how you feel. Here are direct instructions. Create checklists for recurring actions. Morning, work start, work end, weekly review. Don't trust memory. Write it down. Decide standards in advance. How many hours you work. What done looks like. When you stop, standards remove negotiation. Build routines you can repeat even on terrible days. If a routine requires high energy, it's fragile. Lower the requirement. Make it durable. Durable systems survive stress. Stress is guaranteed. Success belongs to what survives. You don't need their permission to simplify your systems. Simple systems run longer. Complex systems collapse. Millionaires obsess over simplicity, not because they're lazy, because they're serious. Serious about results. Serious about freedom. Here's the final truth. Motivation makes you feel good. Systems make you effective. Feeling good is temporary. Effectiveness compounds. This entire book has been about one thing: control. Control over your time, your focus, your environment, your actions. Systems are how control becomes permanent. Once systems are in place, success stops being a struggle. It becomes a process. Processes don't care about mood. They run. That's the key. You have a choice. You can live a life that collapses when motivation fades, or you can build a life that keeps moving no matter what. Millionaires choose the second, not because they're special, because they're disciplined, and discipline is designed. You've reached the end of the framework, not the end of the work, because now there are no excuses left. You don't need more information. You need implementation. So we close this book where it began, with responsibility, with structure, with action. Now step forward, not motivated, systemized. Here's the truth. You don't need more information. You don't need more inspiration. You need structure. Millionaire success is not mysterious. It's organized mornings, disciplined habits, clear priorities, emotionless execution. If your life feels chaotic, your results will be chaotic. If your days are disciplined, your future will be powerful. So here's your challenge. Starting tomorrow, organize your day before the world touches it. Decide your priorities in advance. Remove one distraction. Execute one disciplined action, whether you feel like it or not. Do that every day. Because wealth doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to discipline. And discipline is a decision you make, starting now.